Okay, Dan. So a interesting variety article to look at today.
Sounds interesting. I'm interested to see what you have for me because at this point, I'm not. All you've told me is that we have, um, all you've told me is that there's stuff that I need to hear about. So let's see.
Yeah. So Zack Snyder's Star Wars pitch was a big ask since it had no pre-existing characters and an R rating that was almost a non-starter. Have you heard of this Rebel Moon thing?
Yeah, I just heard about this for the first time the other day.
Yeah. So apparently he's been working on this for a while now, and the pitch was back in like 2012 when Disney bought Star Wars. And he came in, he said, he expected that. Well, here, let me scroll down and I'll show you this. Yeah, so the sale of Lucasfilm to Disney had just happened. And there was that window, who knows what's possible. I was like, I don't want to use any of your characters. I don't want to do anything with any known characters. I just want to do my own thing on the side. Oh, and also I wanted to be rated R. And he said he knew that was probably a non-starter. What are your thoughts on a Zack Snyder Star Wars movie?
I mean, honestly, I'm excited.
So you're excited for Rebel Moon?
Yeah, I can't say I'm
Okay.
excited for Rebel Moon. I don't even know what it's about. I just think that
Uh,
it's I've always been like a Zack Snyder fan. I'm not going so far as say fanboys. I had a lot of busy things going on than cheering for the Snyderverse to get restored. So I didn't care about that when that was happening. But like I grew up with 300. I love Sin City. I'm one of the weirdos who like Man of Steel. I could see why the people didn't like it.
I liked
I
it.
was pretty Yeah, we it came out when you and I were at a young age where I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like this is a different Superman. And I understand as I grew, I understood what Superman actually meant to people, and seeing him like that would be kind of depressing and insulting. But for me, I was like, oh, okay, like I kind of get it. But with that, I thought that like we should be encouraging people's creativity.
Mm-hmm.
When I heard that Zack Snyder wanted to do like a space opera that was rated R, I was like, cool. Like everybody should have one of those. Like let's more of this. Like this is what we should be doing. Like we're in a time when people are super interested in space. Let's keep making space movies. Like this is a really fun, cool idea. So, as long as it's not like I don't know, I think they could really benefit from it not being too much leaning into the R rating because they want to get, maybe some families or some teens to go and see it and stuff like that. But I don't know. It could be huge. It could be one of those things where we laugh about in 10 years, but it can't be worse than Star Wars.
Yeah, especially with how bad Star Wars has been over the last 10 years. I mean, yeah, Rogue One was good. Season 7 of the Clone Wars was pretty good. I liked the first season of The Bad Batch, and obviously the first two seasons of Mando were pretty good. But beyond that, it just seems like everything that Disney puts out with Star Wars is just subpar. And I'm a very big fan of space. There's a Starfield is coming out later this year, and I've been really excited for this game for a while now because space seems to be that. I mean, it's what they say in Star Trek: space, the final frontier. It's the last vestige of being able to be what we were in the 1800s and explorers.
Yeah,
And I think there's something rather remarkable about space, and it poses a very good setting that will allow just about any director to just explore and do whatever they want. So I'm sort of excited. I'm excited in the sense that we get some space stuff, and I would like to see what Zack Snyder, with uh to quote the greatest producer and studio head of all time, Kathleen Kennedy, does with no source material. So I'd love to see what this looks like. Do I think it's going to be, do I think it's going to be great? Do I think it's going to redefine the genre? No. Especially if this started off as a Star Wars project, I imagine it's going to look a lot like a Star Wars project. Um, But I mean, 10 years he's been working on this, so I would expect it to be more than unique enough to get away with it.
Well, unique is an interesting word to use because I'm sure it will be unique. I mean, I was reminded of while you were talking about his latest film, The Army of the Dead, I think it's called, and it's a Netflix movie with the zombies in Las Vegas, and I'll be honest, that movie didn't do well. I think it was pretty poorly received, and there were dead pixels in the movie. So, if he nips
Well,
that
that's
stuff in the
interesting.
butt, yeah. I mean, I would encourage you to watch some of the reviews on it, but yeah, because the people were like, "Oh, no, Zack Snyder with zombies," and it's like, "Oh, yeah, that would be cool." But we already know what Zack Snyder can do with zombies. He did Dawn of the Dead, so why are we doing this again? It's like, oh, well, it's like Zack Snyder with zombies, and it's like, oh, okay. So he just needs. I would imagine he's just working. But with this, something that seems passionate, something that he hasn't touched before. He hasn't done a space before, I don't think, a space film, and I think it's going to be exciting to have that exploration again. I was reminded of it when you were speaking about it, but I was thinking to myself, we've entered into an age where, not to quote Star Trek, but it's the final frontier. We used to have, like, the world used to be mysterious and exciting, and you'd have explorers and people making maps and going on adventures, and that used to be a real drive of the American, or not the American, the human experience of
Manifest Destiny.
storytelling. Yeah, well, that's American. I don't mean to
Right.
get so narrow. I just meant, like, storytelling about adventures has been in our blood since we've had stories. And so, now it's time to kind of take that same creativity and put it in space and let more and more people keep doing that. So I think stuff like this needs to be supported. I'll go see it. I'm excited to see Dune 2. I don't know if you've seen that, any trailers for that.
I have not. I'm not a Dune guy, but I am looking forward to seeing how much money it makes, especially when you consider the cast and the fact that it is the cheapest blockbuster made in, I believe, the last decade. $120 million is its budget.
And that's less than the first one, I thought I heard.
I mean, that just kind of blows my mind.
I hope it does well, man. I hope it does.
You know what? I'm gonna go see it. I'm gonna go see it just to support someone that's capable of doing what he's doing with that kind of money.
Yeah. You take it like how I took it. I didn't read any of the books or anything like that. I wasn't interested in it. I saw the first movie. I thought it was awesome. Kind of got a little bit more into it from there. I'm avoiding the books because I want to see the second movie, and I'm excited, man. Like I think you would like it a lot. It's like the whole premise is that there's no aliens, right? It's humanity has spread across the stars.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
That I do. There's my brother's a very big Dune guy, so there's a little bit of stuff that I know. But final thoughts on Rebel Moon.
I am excited to see where it goes. If I start hearing news where it's like, oh, this casting for this person, or this She-Hulk and Multiverse of Madness writers in it, it's like, okay. But for now, a rated R space opera directed by Zack Snyder sounds cool.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Well, it kind of reminds me of, like, this is a perfect opportunity for movies and studios and everybody to take a look back at some of those more creative ideas from, like, the B and C tier movies that are from, like, the 70s and 80s, where you're like, that's kind of a cool concept, but they didn't have the technology, they didn't have the budget. And it's like, well, now just take the budget you have and just take that story that was kind of cool. Like, I'm kind of stretched for the brain for now, but there's old, like, sci-fi movies where it's like all they needed kind of was a better budget and more, like, props and stuff like that, because they're just kind of look like kind of stupid and cheap. But the ideas are there, and it's more just like, it's like the original series of Star Trek, where it's like they're working with what they had, but these storylines were amazing. Those were like what you went. There were more moral decisions and stuff like that. That's not what I'm saying would apply to everything. I'm just saying that's where it'd be cool to see kind of like them picking through the graveyard instead of revisiting intellectual properties that we love because we don't want to see them tarnished anymore. Go reinvent ones that nobody liked and try to make them good again.